I remember when running a good game of D&D only required my DM screen, a few books and dice. But now we need handcuffs, a dog collar, and a ball gag. I don't know why I'm making this video. Because I'm an idiot, I guess. Before we get into this, I want to address some criticisms I've received, claims that I don't care about vulnerable people because of my stance. Those people are unaware my position is precisely because of how much I do care about vulnerable people. Furthermore, let me ask, what exactly do vulnerable people look like? Is there some checklist and criteria they need to meet? Are you aware I survived an injury that left me half paralyzed, told I'd never walk again? I still struggled to make it through the day. February of this year, my seizures were so bad, I was certain I wouldn't survive. My critics have no idea of the hardships I endure. Just because somebody looks well put together on camera doesn't mean anything. I've spoken openly about my severe CPTSD. You don't think I have my triggers? I certainly do, which is why I have a therapist. But guess what? People need to stop using the word triggered when what they really mean is offended. To do so diminishes actual mental health struggles. Everyone struggles, some more than others. I was in the hospital for 2 months and I saw people so much worse than me. I'm grateful to be alive, and I've found that helping and uplifting others is the best therapy any of us can experience. Lately, the ongoing conversation around safety tools in tabletop games has been upsetting me. Well, not so much the conversation as the people with the loudest voices. The cheerleaders have this position that RPG safety tools are absolutely necessary for vulnerable people, and if you disagree, you're a bad person. Meanwhile, I've developed an antagonistic tone directed at those pushing them into the hobby. Perhaps they're the bad person. This is a real de-evolution from my original position as expressed in this previous safety tools video created 2 years ago. If you haven't already watched it, it's on my commentary channel. Be sure to bookmark it for later. Many say it's YouTube's best video on the topic. I moved it from this channel because of harassment and cyberbullying, which is what I'll end up doing with this video after harassment from the "we need safety tools to protect us from toxic people" crowd becomes unbearable, which it will. I'm not excited about uploading this video because frankly, I don't need the stress and anxiety this topic brings into my life. It's turned into a major clusterfuck and everyone has blindly, mindlessly dug themselves into their trenches. But I foolishly made several shorts from a recent video and was bludgeoned with reminders of how ill-informed many still are on this topic. I regretted throwing out that red meat and deleted those shorts. I also regretted how I responded to some of those cheerleaders. They probably mean well and trust the influencers who have told them to use the tools. They protect vulnerable people. But just because a YouTuber with a lot of subscribers says something, it doesn't make it true. This channel may not have a lot of subscribers, but on this topic, I know what I'm talking about. This video now exists because some people do not understand simple instructions. Failing to understand an X card isn't going to protect you from a toxic group. You need to leave and find a new group. That's it. End of debate. No is a complete sentence. I try to explain that while safety tools cheerleaders say the tools protect vulnerable people. I've been DMing since 1980. And I can confidently tell you there's only 2 safety tools you need. 1, Session 0, which explains expectations and content. 2, knowledge that if a group is toxic, you get up and leave to find a new group. As a GM, it is my duty to pre-screen participants to ensure my games are not toxic, but people can surprise you sometimes. Then it's my duty to monitor that behavior and decide if I need to remove someone. Across over 4 decades of running games, I've found that if I don't enjoy somebody's company outside of a game, I shouldn't try to endure them in my group, and neither should you. This practice has served me well, and I'm blessed with amazing people in my games. Look at this. This is a real thumbnail from a real Dungeontuber for a real video expressing real concerns. What the fuck is wrong with people? Not her. The people she's calling out. Forcibly impregnating people, even if it's make-believe, is a form of rape. You get that, right? You all understand how babies are made, right? As for a Session 0, I've been using the same format since the 80s. In August of 2024, I informed my Discord community I was creating a Session 0 video, but I never got around to it. And in recent months, Seth beat me to it. He perfectly covered everything needed to ever be said on the subject. The fact that he and I have both adopted the same procedures independently of one another tells you this is tried, true, and effective. Go watch his video. Copy what he does. It's what I do. It's literally all you need before session 1. And by the way, I'm working on a video titled If I'm Your DM, This is Session 1, to explain my session 1 formula that every GM should definitely copy. Let's be clear. I advocate for empathy and compassion. In my personal and professional capacity, I have a history of organizing and conducting charity events for vulnerable people, including homeless LGBTQ+ youth. I was a long-time food bank volunteer. I organized and led a charity event that kept fuel and food bank trucks for 6 months. I organized a clothing drive to clothe homeless LGBTQ+ youth during the winter months. And I've been writing a book to discuss how, in 2015, I witnessed a local popular promoter attempt to sexually assault a drunk woman. I spoke out, and his rape apologist friends turned my life upside down. It cost me huge sums of money I don't have just to ensure facts were part of the official court records. Because I'm not a bar stool warmer at a shitty bar, his enablers still lie about me. But even through the threats and abuse, I bring his criminal records to local nightclubs, among other actions, to keep him from gaining access to vulnerable women. So if your advocacy for vulnerable people begins and ends with copy-pasting blog posts, I'm not interested in your moral lectures. Empathy and compassion are vital, but without critical thinking, those are just empty words that can lead to unintended consequences. There's an old saying, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And this video will discuss why good intentions coupled with ignorance have irreparably harmed tabletop gaming, all in the name of protecting vulnerable people. Influencers have a duty to the truth, and if they can't separate their cognitive biases from the facts, they shouldn't be promoting socially volatile issues which impact their fans' physical and mental health. Matt Mercer may be a great DM, and I know he is well-intended, but that doesn't necessarily mean he excels in critical thinking or that his public positions aren't shaped by his brand image. Also, to my knowledge, he doesn't have a degree in psychology. If you're an RPG Safety Tools cheerleader, all I ask is you listen to the facts in this video and at least question what you've been told in the past. As I explained in my original Safety Tools video, even something as well-meaning as trigger warnings have been shown to harm vulnerable people. And now for everyone, especially the cheerleaders, do you understand where RPG Safety Tools originated? I wish the answer was this document I wrote in the 90s explaining my expectations of players, the content of my games, and gave examples of behavior that would not be tolerated in my groups. This was part of my Session 0. This goes back to what Seth was saying in his Session 0 video. I created this document because I was DMing for a lot of strangers as my steady campaign invited new players into my home and games. These were tools to screen out potential problems, encourage a healthy environment, and improve communication among participants. And though my communication tools document predates official published safety tools by 5 years, they are the only real tools anyone actually needs. They tell you what type of game I'm running and rules you must follow to participate. On the other hand, the first official safety tools were published by game designer Ron Edwards in his 2002 book titled Sex and Sorcery. But Ron's safety tools weren't simply an outline for running a smooth game intended to keep out the jerks or even protect vulnerable people. To understand why he created those tools, you have to understand the kind of game he was writing about. Sex and Sorcery was not about dungeon crawls or solving mysteries. It was about emotional manipulation, interpersonal power struggles, and erotic trauma played out through the characters but absolutely meant to bleed into the players at the table. On page 10 of that book, Edwards writes, and I am quoting directly, imaginative acts of rape and abuse occur in the game as ways to abuse fellow players emotionally. Now let that sink in. I want you to call up your friends, invite them to a party, and tell them, hey, by the way, just a heads up, if things get really out of hand, imaginative acts of rape and abuse may occur as ways to emotionally abuse other guests. After doing that, let me know in the comments if any of those people are still your friends. I've had people angry at me for repeating those words that he wrote while they try to rationalize his words, because he's talking about that as an example of a bad game. You know what? If you're defending imaginative acts of rape, I don't care what caveat you're placing on it. You've already lost the debate. Furthermore, the distance between a fun, healthy game of D&D and imaginative acts of rape are so wide that nobody should ever be placed in that situation. And anyone who wants to defend imaginative acts of rape needs to get off this channel. I don't need or want you here. The safety tools Ron created weren't meant to protect people from ordinary games. They were designed to contain the emotional damage from exactly the type of content he was explicitly putting into his game. He created the fire, then handed out fire extinguishers. And now those fire extinguishers are being pushed into every game, whether there's a fire or not. My next question is for the safety tools cheerleaders. Are you going to sit there and defend imaginative acts of rape? Or are we ready to have an adult discussion about this topic? Sex and Sorcery wasn't a book about safety in general. It was a design essay meant to address how to run role-playing games that deal with intense themes like sex, power, abuse, and trauma in mature, narrative-driven settings. The book explicitly draws on BDSM culture, borrowing its concepts of negotiated consent, hard, soft limits, scene framing, and emotional bleed. This wasn't designed for general fantasy dungeon crawls. It was for Sorcerer, a game built to explore extreme, personal, even traumatic themes in ways that mimic emotionally charged storytelling and even role play as therapy. As I have repeated many times, nobody should be practicing unlicensed mental health therapy on their friends in any game. People throw around the BDSM acronym like it's a neutral framework for handling awkward content in games. Let's actually stop repeating the acronym and say what it stands for. Bondage, discipline, dominance, submission, and sadism. Keep repeating those words for as long as it takes to understand what they mean. Now, because Ron Edwards gave abusers the tools they needed for imaginative acts of rape, our entire hobby has been stained and darkened with misinformation, often being repeated by the biggest influencers in our community. The goth subculture has a long history of association with the BDSM subculture. It's never been my thing. I'm uncomfortable with the potential for abuse and uneven power dynamics. In my opinion, it's unhealthy, but I've dated and have been friends with people that are into it. No judgment. I'm just saying I'm not going to be lectured about BDSM in a game of Dungeons and Dragons by someone repeating a Reddit post. BDSM isn't some arcane therapy speak. It's a framework designed for explicit, often high-risk sexual activity, and it assumes a level of negotiation, trust, and potential for harm no D&D table should ever be asked to facilitate. Again, these tools aren't protecting vulnerable people as much as they are handing out weapons for abusers. If you disagree with that, it's not because I'm wrong, it's because you don't understand how abusers interact with the world. In my original Safety Tools video, I mentioned 3rd edition's Book of Erotic Fantasy. Going back to what I said about the goth subculture often aligning with the BDSM kink community, I know or have known most of the people modeling in that book. I've dated a few of them, and I'm not putting any of them down. But that book was completely unnecessary, idiotic, and catered to a certain D&D player stereotype that I have long fought to distance myself from. Remember my earlier joke about finding the clitoris in real life before pretending to know where it is in a game? Yeah. That stereotype. Here's a photo of my 9th grade D&D club. I have another question for the Safety Tools cheerleaders. How did we ever manage to enjoy the game without asking 15-year-old Steve to be handcuffed, leashed, and restrained in a dog collar? Or remember Stranger Things? Can someone tell me which episode featured their campaign derailing because they forgot to establish safe words? I don't recall. Was there ever an episode where Mike, Lucas, Dustin, and Will are playing in Mike's basement and out of nowhere, Dustin says, "I put my dick in Will's mouth"? Another question. Does your X card fix that? Or do you tell Dustin to pack his shit and never come back? If you think a tabletop role-playing game like D&D should be exposing players to the same potential for physical and emotional harm as bondage, discipline, dominance, submission, and sadism, then your groups definitely need to be using RPG safety tools to protect others from you. And furthermore, if you are trying to inject bondage, discipline, dominance, submission, and sadism into a D&D game, you are definitely someone who has never been part of a BDSM community and lifestyle. Another question for the cheerleaders. Do you think safety tools are vital to protect vulnerable people? Well, who exactly are these vulnerable people? Have you asked that and identified them? Do you think it is appropriate to be teaching vulnerable people that everyday life requires BDSM protocols? Do you think it's okay to be subjecting vulnerable people to imaginative acts of rape? I'm constantly told RPG safety tools protect vulnerable people, and that's great. Except if you question the practice, suddenly you're labeled as promoting harm to vulnerable people. Protecting vulnerable people is obviously important. That shouldn't be controversial. It shouldn't be politicized. But historically, some of the worst harm done to vulnerable people has come from those who claimed they were trying to protect them. We literally used to lobotomize people in the name of care. We institutionalized, silenced, and infantilized people, all with the best of intentions. And now the safety tools cheerleaders are trying to force onto others a solution to a problem that shouldn't exist in the first place. No is a complete sentence. They have decided these problems are inevitable by allowing the games to be used in ways they weren't designed for. The fact that a licensed therapist can use TTRPGs as a form of therapy is a separate issue. When safety tools cheerleaders earn a degree and are able to responsibly use the game as therapy, maybe they'll understand how completely irresponsible they're being about these notions they've adopted into their beliefs. As I laid out in my original video, if you're in a bad group, you don't need an X card, you need to leave and find a new group. So get this straight, using RPG safety tools is not the same as being inclusive. You can and should easily be capable of having an inclusive, welcoming table without ever touching an X card, but you can also use every safety tool in the book and still create an uncomfortable, exclusionary environment. Again, my 9th grade D&D club. Despite modern claims of 80s D&D being racist, two of the people in that picture, Christopher and Joseph, remain among my closest friends to this day. They're the only people in that picture I remained friends with, and neither of them have white skin. Christopher recently told me our D&D club was one of the few places that wasn't racist. I'm not trying to tell anyone how to play fantasy make-believe games, but I will continue warning others about people who think they have some responsibility to practice unlicensed mental health therapy on their friends. I've also received pushback after I've stated that the younger generation of gamers are creating solutions for problems they brought into the game. Remember that Dungeontubers video? I'm still in shock that anyone needed to be told that, but modern gamers take the high moral ground by calling out the old school killing of orc babies in 80s D&D adventures. I've had so many people confidently claim there's an orc baby killing room in an early adventure module, I just assumed it had to be true. Would it surprise you to learn that that's another lie created by the internet? The Orc Baby Dilemma, a blogger on F. Douglas Wall's Orc Baby Dilemma site, describes a scenario where a DM demands the party decide whether to kill baby orcs, calling it a stupid DM trick meant to challenge alignment. Yet this is clearly a fan interpretation, not module content. EN World forums debate the morality of killing orc infants, citing the encounter as a possible scenario. Again, optional DM framing, not mandated by TSR edicts. On Reddit's RPG horror stories, because of course we can't mention exaggerated misinformation without bringing Reddit into the chat, one player recounts a DM who enforced killing a baby to complete the mission. No discussion. No session 0. This wasn't an official module. It was a homebrew horror shock tactic. Another user on Reddit D&D Next reported encountering a lost orc child and assumed the script meant that they had to kill it. Again, not an official published adventure. Cave Girl's 2018 blog post lamented that tables took orc families in Keep on the Borderlands and turned them into genocide scenarios, not because the module demanded it, but because the DM chose to escalate it. A user's blog post highlights an orc women and goblin kids scenario in B2. Players handled the women and kids with Molotov cocktails, framing it as genocide. That's acknowledged as a homebrew interpretation by the DM. Another forum recounts players entering a cave of non-combatant orcs, women and children, then releasing most but killing one as a warning. Again, DM driven, not from the book. On Reddit and other OSR posts, fans describe moral discomfort around killing baby orcs in Keep on the Borderlands, but those are player decisions, not module scripts. Confession, I'm human. It is possible I'm missing something. If you have factual, material evidence to the contrary, then please let me know in the comments. However, I found no official module, including Palace of the Silver Princess or Caves of Chaos, requiring PCs to kill babies, orcs or otherwise. The examples touted by safety tool advocates often come from fan novels, DM shock tactics, or improvised horror homebrew, not the published lore. Perhaps it's because of my true love for this hobby and respect for my friends reasons that nobody in any of my groups in 45 years have ever been placed in any baby killing situations, and I've ran most of the old modules. The repetition of the orc baby killing myth serves as fear-based reinforcement, designed to trigger emotional buy-in for safety tools, even when there's no structural need for them. I genuinely believe that most of the people enthusiastically promoting RPG safety tools are in fact well-meaning. They sincerely care about creating safe, inclusive spaces, but good intentions aren't a substitute for critical thinking. Now, these are my final thoughts. In a future video, we can discuss how the 90s really brought in the sexual themes with games like Vampire the Masquerade and Changeling. The younger generation of gamers can't be blamed for starting this fire, but we can work together to put it out. That's how we can truly make this hobby safe for vulnerable people. While D&D can be therapeutic, it isn't therapy. If imaginary spiders in a tabletop role-playing game are causing such emotional distress, someone is unable to enjoy a game of make-believe, they don't need an X card, they need a therapist. That is in no way shaming mental health struggles. I say that out of love and experience. Again, I've been very open about my own struggles with severe CPTSD. I say go to therapy like we're living in some Scandinavian utopia. I'm in the United States. Our healthcare, and especially mental health care, is abysmal. The truth is, we're really all on our own. And if we can't find a therapist for a variety of reasons, typically financial, we need to reach out to someone. Do that. Find someone you really trust who won't use your struggles against you, and talk about what you're going through. Exercise is also very important to our mental health. Get out for a walk. This is advice I wish I followed more. Or at the very least, write a letter to yourself. This can be helpful. Some have even reported that talking about your struggles with ChatGPT can be helpful. No matter what you do, remember you have a purpose. And as I discovered through my struggles, helping others is a great form of therapy. I only made this video because I'm trying to get the cheerleaders to understand that for abusers, rules are meant to be exploited and broken. Cheerleaders think BDSM tools protect vulnerable people, but they actually just give abusers a challenge and a goal. If I sometimes respond negatively to comments by advocates of this topic, it's not because they disagree with me. We can have disagreements, that's fine. My hostility is because I'm just exhausted and tired of trying to get people to practice what they preach. They say they care about others, and then their brains turn off. These well-meaning people just repeat propaganda other big influencers have told them to believe. I know this is a losing battle, but I uploaded this video precisely because I do care. I uploaded this video because tools to manage imaginative acts of rape do not belong in our tabletop games. No game master should ever be practicing unlicensed mental health therapy on their friends. And fuck Ron Edwards for thinking they should. And fuck anyone who agrees with him. No is a complete sentence. Thanks for watching.